Hello, Ram 55 here, and thanks for tuning in. We're back playing Trainz 2019 again, and we're back on the Tidewater Railroad. This is session 6. How time flies when you're having fun. I hope you guys enjoy watching these videos as much as I enjoy running the trains. Today we're going to be following Andrew, who's driving a GP38-2 for the Tidewater Railroad. He's one of the more senior engineers driving for the Tidewater Railroad. He's going to be driving a local train, delivering the grain hoppers, the empty grain hoppers brought in by Donald on the first train of the day. He's going to make some deliveries at the Tidewater Mills and the local co-op, and then end his run at the terminal grain silos. So let's enjoy the ride. Now this was originally quite a long video. It was like an hour and a half long. So I've cut out some of the plain Jane boring parts. I hope you don't mind the jumping around a little bit to cut it down to a more reasonable length of time, and hopefully a more interesting video for you guys to watch. So Andrew is backing out of the engine repair facilities. It's also the storage yard where they refuel the locomotives, resand them, do minor maintenance. It's also where they hang out in between their jobs. You know how it is when you're working with a bunch of folks, and grab a cup of coffee, pass the time. So he's back out into the yard here. He's going to drive all the way down there to the east end of the yard, and then back up and hook up to those empty grain hoppers and make deliveries. And that's what railroading is all about. It's moving cars to service the industries that are contracting with you to get stuff done. And I think it's a lot of fun. Here's a guy over there smoking. I work in pulmonology, so I'll probably be seeing him in a couple years in my office. It's pretty cool, the animations they have in this game. It's kind of fun to watch. So that track going off to the right is how you would get to the east staging yard. That's where the inbound trains come from that enter the CSX trains, that is, would come from the east and get into the northern yard at Tidewater. Now, as you can see in the bottom right, I'm not using the DC controls. I'm using my rail driver again. I won't say I'm getting cocky, but I'm getting a lot more comfortable using it. I must say that when you use the rail driver, there's a lot more stuff you have to pay attention to. There's more controls and different ways to stop the train. It's not just a simple matter of rotating the dial to go forward and backwards. So you got to think about what you're doing. And the hardest part is when you're going slow and figuring out when to apply the brakes to stop. And it's a handful, but I enjoy it. Here's a guy walking down the street on the main street at Tidewater, watching the engines go by. And does anybody use a phone booth anymore? Not in this world anyways. Those days are long gone. When I was growing up, there was a phone booth on the corner of every gas station. And they all had the yellow pages in there. You could look up phone numbers and stuff like that. Those days are long gone. We all have it on our phone that we carry around with us all the time. So here's Andrew backing up slowly to attach the empty grain hoppers. Again, mastering that slow speed is the hard part of using the rail driver. The conductor has hooked up the air hoses, they've done the air check and the brake check, and now he's on his way north to make the deliveries. one of the big differences between using the DC control and the rail driver is that with DC you have certain notches, and I think it's up to 8, just like a real locomotive. And every notch will give you a certain speed for that particular engine and the train you're pulling. And it may not quite get you up to the speed limit, so you have to go like a notch down so you don't bust that speed. But with the rail driver, you can actually accelerate up to the speed and then bring the throttle back to idle. And these trains have such low friction, they can maintain that speed with no throttle input or very little input. So it's actually, you get closer to the speed by using the rail driver. Another neat thing is over on the right, there's some boxes below the speed. You can see the 14 out of 15 mile per hour. Below that are some numbers. Those numbers actually correlate to the numbers on the dials you see inside the cabinet. They're exactly matching up, so they are accurately giving you pipe pressure and all that other stuff. And I'm not an expert. I can't remember what exactly all those mean, but it's a measurement of the air pressure in the brake lines, and tells you whether or not you've got enough air in there to apply the brakes and all that stuff. So I'll have to do some more research into what those numbers actually mean. Yeah, the brake systems, you should do some research online or on YouTube or anything, but if you look up the mechanics of the brakes of a train, it's a very complicated system. It has to be. It's got to be fail-safe. In case a train cuts loose and the hoses get disconnected, they can't have those things just kind of take off on their own, because there ain't nothing going to stop them until they hit something or fall over. So how's everybody doing today? You doing all right? Here in Michigan, we had some sloppy weather the last couple days. We had some more snow. Here it is the end of April, or end of March, beginning of April. Had some snow yesterday and big old thunderstorm this morning. Anyways, hope you're all doing well. And after those storms down in the southwest, I hope everybody's safe as well. So the tail end of the train has cleared the yard. The speed limit's now up to 40 miles an hour, and Andrew's accelerating hard to get up to that speed. Andrew is pumping the independent brake, which is the brake only on the locomotive, trying to keep his speed down to 40. If you use the train brake, that means every car in the consist is applying its brakes, and it takes a lot longer to take those brakes on and off. So I was just trying to use the independent brake to slow it down there. You can see Tidewater Mills in the distance off there to the left. That'll be our first destination today. And there's going to be a switch up here. It's already been set. So we need to start slowing down so we don't derail the train as we take that siding. Now look how smooth the cab ride is here. When we get onto that siding, I don't know if it's uneven track or exactly what's going on, but boy, these cars are rocking and rolling. You can't go very fast or they will derail. So we're going to try to keep the speed to about 15 miles an hour, even though the speed limit is 20. Now I don't have the car tagger system, so I cheat a little bit. And how do I determine which cars are going where? Well, I try to use similar cars going to one industry. So one car goes to one industry. If it's a different kind of hopper, it goes to a different industry. And that way I know where to make the cut when I'm delivering the cars. Now this is a view from a guy's house, which is right on the corner of this road and the track. How'd you like to have that blasting in your living room all day long? So that grain silo to the left, that's actually the co-op. So some local farmers bring their grain there to get picked up, and we'll be servicing that industry as well. But our first stop will be Tidewater Mills. So there is a long yard lead here going past the co-op. So we can get this whole string of empty grain hoppers past the switch where we'll go off to the right there on the way up to Tidewater Mills. And the last car has cleared the switch. Conductor's thrown it, and now we'll back up and take that spur off to the mills. Sounds like one of these farmers here has a lot of chickens running around. Speed's getting a little bit away from me there. I need to slow that down. I think 15 is a little bit more reasonable speed. Seems a little bit dangerous to be coming into an industrial area at 20 miles an hour with this big old train. So the way it's set up right now, that first switch will take you to the unloading, or the loading chute. So we'll drop 4 cars off there to be loaded up by the folks at the mill. And we'll put the rest of the empties that are destined for Tidewater Mills on one of the storage tracks. Once those 4 are loaded up, we'll have a switcher come up and swap out for 4 more, and then either take the full ones back to Tidewater or put them on the storage track over there to the right. And what I may do is assign a switcher to this industry, so he'll be here all the time and he can do that switching without having to make the run all the way from Tidewater every time we need to exchange these cars. And the more I think about it, I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll just purchase another locomotive and assign it to the mill here. The other thing that I find rather strange is that the Loading of the hoppers is on this side of the building, and the unloading of the trucks is on the other side. I think what I may do is swap this procedure so that they unload the cars on the other side of the building, because right now these farmers bringing their loaded trucks in have to cross over the track in two different spots. Seems to me that's kind of illogical, kind of dangerous, so I may have to alter the way this industry is laid out. You can see the road there where the farmers bring their loaded trucks in, and then they go across the track to the other side, dump their grain trucks through a mesh in the ground, and then they have to cross the track again up here. Doesn't seem logical, so I'll have to probably switch that around. So Andrew has dropped off 4 empty hoppers. They'll be loaded up. As those are loaded up, like I said, I'll assign a road engine or a switching engine to come over here and service the mill here. You can see all that corn growing out there in the fields. That's big business up here in Tidewater. So Andrew has pulled forward far enough to clear the switch, and the conductor has thrown that. And now he'll back into the storage ladder here to drop off some more empties. Again, trying to keep the speed down to a safe, reasonable speed, and I think 10 to 15 is the max. Probably 10's a lot more reasonable speed when you're working around an industry like this with people walking around. Not that you're going to be able to stop the train on a dime if you need to anyways, but slow is the name of the game. So you can see that shed there on the right. That's where the trucks pull in to empty their grain their grain trucks, and they have to cross the track twice. So I think I'm going to actually have the railroad come into this side to make their empties to fill up, and then have the trucks make their deliveries on the opposite side. Just makes more sense to me. Plus, when I cut off the empty hoppers on the other side, I can only do 4 at a time because I don't want to be blocking the road. So you can only put in so many at a time, otherwise it really stops the operation. So you can see there's 4 tracks here, and I think if they are fully operational and full up, 2 of these tracks will be empties, waiting to be filled up with grain from those silos, and then the other 2 will be used for the fulls, and then when the local makes his run, he'll just grab the full ones and take them back to Tidewater. Now obviously these are the first sessions that I've been recording, so these are the first cars that are being delivered to the entire route. Once this thing kicks through a cycle, there will be some full grain cars ready to be picked up here, but right now these are the only deliveries. Nothing's been filled yet, so nothing to take back. So when we're all done with today's switching duties, Andrew's going to head back to Tidewater Light. In other words, he won't have any cars pulling back with him, but once we go through a cycle, he'll take the full cars that had previously been spotted at these industries back with him to Tidewater. So as we progress through a full day's cycle, the railroading will get a lot more interesting. Next up on the switch list will be servicing the farmers co-op there. They're only getting 2 cars today. Right now my code, as I said, for which cars get delivered to what industry is by the type of cars. So you can see all these cars going by right now are the same. And then the last 2 will be different. And those are the 2 that will be dropped off at the co-op. This is the first run through for a complete day cycle here at Tidewater, and as I go along I'm seeing things that work and some things that don't. Some track configurations that may need to be changed. So it's a work in progress, but it's fun. I love it. Hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Again, modulating the train brake there to keep my speed under control. We're doing 12 and we're just coasting along at idle. So as we approach this overhang where the cars get loaded, you want to be slowing down to a good safe speed. Not much clearance there on the roof of that hopper as it goes through that loading chute. And that looks good right about there. Conductor will set the handbrake. He'll uncouple the cars. And Andrew will pull forward to clear that runaround track. And then he'll have one more industry to serve before he heads back to Tidewater. That next industry is terminal grain. That's another industry I've made a lot of modifications to. And again, that'll be a work in progress. I'll be adding buildings and looking at that as we move along here. You can see that runaround track is quite lengthy, and I think that will come in handy later in the series as we're taking loaded hoppers back with us, because some of those trains may be rather long and you'll want to get a big passing track or runaround track to get on the other end. So you don't have to push the cars all the way back to Tidewater. You can pull them back with the engine on the lead end. See, look how much that car is wavering back and forth. If you took that at high speed, I'm not sure if they'd stay on the track. It seems to be a little excessive. They don't do that much leaning out on the main line, so it must be inherent in the track somehow. I'm not really sure. If anybody has any ideas why they do so much shaking like that, let me know. Does it have to do with the quality of the track that you laid? I know you can adjust them so that there are different levels of maintenance. Going by that guy's house again. Hope he's not watching a good movie. That train horn would just really irritate me. So Andrew is pushing this cut of cars that's destined to terminal grain back out on the main line. We don't have to worry too much about other traffic because it's a short line railroad. There aren't that many trains on there. In fact, he's the only train running right now out on the main line. So yes, doesn't have to worry about it, but he's still in communication with the dispatcher. So the dispatcher would let him know if a special train has been sent and that he's got clearance out on the main line, etc. So they're talking to each other. This is quite the drive back to get to the main line, eh? Look at all the detail on that rail car there. The handbrake, the ladder, the rust, all the trusses and stuff. Pretty awesome detail. The other thing that really fascinates me is when, we drive through a bush or a tree like that, it seems like every branch and every leaf has been modeled. You really feel like you're going through a tree. It's pretty amazing. So here we are finally back on the main line. And we'll jump off here and watch the rest of the train come out. Now these cars are empty, so they're fairly light, so we can stop this train pretty easily with just the train brake, or the independent brake, I'm sorry, the locomotive brake. I think if they were full of grain or whatever substance they may become carrying, I'm not sure that locomotive brake would be enough to bring them to a safe stop. There we go. Now we'll throw the switch and head north to terminal grain for our last delivery. I was hoping to keep these videos to about between 20 and 30 minutes, but in reality, just the switching operation, which was a very simple, straightforward operation, took me over an hour. So it took a lot of editing to get it down to a reasonable time. So I don't want to shortchange the video so you don't get a feel for what's actually going on, but at the same time, the straight and level running through the countryside, you don't need to necessarily watch all that. So I'll cut it down to a more reasonable level, but I think we still went about 45 minutes or 40 minutes, something like that. Now we'll ride along in the cab here. still need to come up with a name for that river off there to the left. And come up with some new names for these industries. I can't call everything Tidewater and River Point. It gets kind of repetitive and boring. If you guys have any suggestions for the names, drop them in the comments. My mind is open right now. It's kind of cool the way the locomotive banked over when it went through that turn. And I know real trains do that as well. Helps them take a turn at higher speed, and centrifugal force pushes them down into the rail, so they're not top heavy and flop over to the outside and have a higher tendency to derail. So that's pretty cool that it's actually modeled in this simulator. I like the fact that Tidewater keeps their engines nice and clean. When we were riding in the cab of the Canadian National train a couple of sessions ago, their windows were filthy. It's hard to see out the front. Got to the horn a little bit late there, but that's okay. So here's the turnout for the terminal grain silos. What they call a trailing point, so we'll back those in. So we'll drop this load of empties off at their two loading facilities here at Terminal Grain. And since this is the first run through, again, there's no loaded hoppers to pick up. I love this. This is my favorite part of railroading, is seeing the switching operations. Back and forth, dropping, spotting cars. Over the main line is okay, but I like the nitty-gritty yard work and making deliveries. I don't know about you, but if I was a railroad engineer on a long overland route, I would have trouble staying awake. I don't know if I could do that for a long period of time. Might be fun for one or two times, but after that it's like, here we go again. So again, moving kind of fast as we're approaching this industry, so I got to get that speed under control here. It's pretty cool. They even have the dandelions rendered there in the field. So again, that building off to the right, that's the second filling point. I actually flipped that building around so that the filling point is at the leading edge of the cut of cars so they can actually service more cars. Before it was back at the very end. You can only get one car in there because you ran out of track. And you'll see, I think you'll see, as they get spotted under this chute, there's a special piece of track on the track that actually simulates the operation of the loading, and the tops of these hopper cars open up actually to simulate loading. And when you do that, you actually lose control of your train. Now the one they have there is made by Tidewater, and I don't like that as much as the Proto-LAR system. The Proto-LAR system, you can set a delay, so I can spot my cars, and then say 3 or 4 or 5 minutes later, whatever you set, they actually do the loading, and they'll load car by car rather than all the cars at one time, or have to spot each car over that track individually to load it. So I think I'm going to switch that out to Proto-LAR's track as well. So now Andrew will take the remaining cars that don't fit at that first loading area up to this next silo and load there. I'm not sure why they would actually do that. Is that a different kind of grain? You know, is one holding wheat, one holding corn? I have no idea. But anyways, they have 2 areas for loading. So he's pulling up the remaining cars to be spotted underneath this chute. Now, many years ago, when I was first getting into this YouTube channel, I posted some videos on Trainz and how to set up and utilize the Proto-LAR system. And I demonstrated how you can use 2 different areas, one for loading coal, one for unloading coal, and incorporate that into your route. So if you ever get a chance, go back and look at those. They're still interesting, they're still valid. And I'm going to go through this route here at Tidewater and put those into the system wherever I can, so that they will realistically load or unload products when I spot them in an industry. So now Andrew's made all of his deliveries. There's no more grain cars to be delivered. He's going to travel light all the way back to Tidewater, and we'll just catch the highlights of that journey back. I won't bore you with all the details. So as Andrew is making his way back to the engine facility, I'll leave you here. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in and watching. As always, leave a like, subscribe if you would like, and most of all, leave comments. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what I can do better. I always enjoy hearing from folks. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.